So Joseph.
1 second.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here with us this evening. My name is Dr. Lopez Matthews Jr., and I am the State Archivist and Public Records Administrator for Washington, D.C. And in this capacity, I am also the official historian of Washington, D.C. And so I am excited to be here today to welcome you to this great program talking about the Woodlawn Cemetery, its amazing history, and the work of the Woodlawn Collaborative. And as a student of history, as a lover of history, and as a person who was tasked with preserving history, I'm excited to see you all here, and I'm excited to see the work of the Woodlawn Collaborative, because the work of our community in preserving our history is very important. For example, I run the DC Office of Public Records, but we could not do what we do without the support of the people, without the support of the community. And so I'm so excited that you're here today and that you are interested in this topic. I'm excited to see the number of people who are here today. So I'm just excited for this great program. And I know I keep saying that because it's true. And so I'm happy that you are here. And so on behalf of the Office of Public Records, I know a member of our staff, the DC Archivist Bill Branch, is here. And so on behalf of my office and on behalf of my boss, who is the Secretary of State, your Delta sister, Kimberly Bassett, I would like to wish you all a great program and thank you all for being here. And now I would like to introduce Nicole Jordan, the president of the Washington, D.C. Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and a member of the Woodlawn Collaborative Project.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews, and thank you for being here with us this evening. Good evening, everyone. As you heard, my name is Nicole Jordan, and I have the honor of serving as the president of the Washington, D.C. Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I bring you greetings on behalf of the Washington, D.C. Alumni Chapter, as well as the Woodlawn Collaborative Project. I thank you for joining us tonight, and I promise you that you are in for a treat. But before we begin, I really want to just provide a little bit of background on the Woodlawn Collaborative Project and how we got where we are today. In 2018, Washington, D.C. Alumni Chapter established a relationship with the Woodlawn Cemetery Perpetual Care Association, better known to us as Woodlawn Cemetery, after we discovered that Mary Edna Brown Coleman, a founder of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, was buried at Woodlawn. Washington, D.C. Alumni chapter, in conjunction with the Grand Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, partnered with the Woodlawn Cemetery to bestow a new headstone there for Mary Edna Brown Coleman. And on Saturday, October 23rd in 2021, there was a memorial service held and a headstone was dedicated. This project began the love and the connection that we have with the Woodlawn Project, and we continued to commit our time to providing public awareness and support for the cemetery. In February of 2022, Washington, D.C. Alumni chapter discovered that Marjorie Hall and Sarah Merriwith Nutter, founders of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, were also buried at the Woodlawn Cemetery. So we reached out to the Alpha Kappa chapters in the Washington, D.C. area, and of course, without fail, realized that there was a collaboration that needed to be done to ensure that our ancestors were well taken care of. So in a desire to work together in sisterhood, local chapters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and other chapters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in the DMV were invited to work in an effort to really work with the Woodlawn Cemetery. The Woodlawn Collaborative Project was formed on March 3rd, 2022, and it consists of 18 chapters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and four chapters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. This project and the collaborative project will remain until June 30th of 2026, and it's managed by the Washington, D.C. Alumni chapter. Our panel discussion today will let you know what we're doing, allow you to experience the challenges faced by those who are shepherding the cemetery, and also let you know how you can help. Today, our moderator is Dr. Sandra Jowers-Barber, a former professor of history at the University of District of Columbia. She is a noted historian in the Washington, D.C. community. She is one of several sorors chosen to be listed as a woman of distinction in leadership and service. We are so pleased that she was volunteered and consented to be our moderator for this evening, and I will turn the rest of the evening over to her. Soror Barber.
Thank you so much, Soror Nicole. It's an honor to be able to be here today as a historian and a public historian. I am always glad to be engaged with an opportunity or presented with an opportunity to talk about the importance and significance of preserving our history. And so appropriate that we are having this program a few days before May, because in a few days, we will be observing the 32nd anniversary of the discovery of the African burial ground in Lower Manhattan in New York City. And this was one of the great discoveries. Historians were just amazed at what was found. And of course, Howard University was involved because in the pre-construction that took place, skeletons were found. And of course, and it was a federal property, federal ground. And so the law states that you have to stop what you're doing, bring in an anthropologist and archaeologists and historians to determine to whom the bones belong. And in doing so, they brought them back to Howard University, and it was discovered that they were the bones and skeletons of African men, women, and children who had literally been worked to death. And this discovery was astounding because when most people think of slavery in this country, you do not think of the North, and you certainly do not think of New York. So we know that not only are burial grounds important places for the discovery of history, they're also important places where we get to bury our loved ones. So it's a sacred ground. It's an opportunity to honor them, to come visit them. So it is just with excitement, I'll borrow Dr. Matthews' term, that I am here today with this very distinguished panel. You are in for a robust discussion, and you will learn some interesting things from the members of this panel, whom I will now introduce. Mr. Leander Moore, President, Board of Directors, Woodlawn Cemetery Perpetual Care Association. Jean Cooper, Member, North Arundel County Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Member, Woodlawn Collaborative Project. Janice Farabee, Member, Xi Omega Chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Member, Woodlawn Collaborative Project. Caliph Camara, Mayor's Office on African American Affairs. Antoinette White Richardson, Vice President, Board of Directors, Woodlawn Cemetery Perpetual Care Association, member, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, member, Woodlawn Collaborative Project. Welcome to the members of the panel. Thank you for agreeing to be here today. And I was going to did a little umbrella history talking about the African burial ground in New York City and that amazing discovery. But we have some historic cemeteries, and one historic cemetery that we talked about, and so our president mentioned the founders of Delta Sigma Theta there and the founders of Alpha Kappa Alpha there as well. So let's talk a little bit about that significance as we look at the importance of African American cemeteries today. And I'd like to start with you, Sora Tony, if you don't mind. Just what is the importance to you?
Cemeteries to me is just what you said. It gives me my history. It makes me understand what has happened or evolved before my existence and how my existence is so tied to a cemetery. In Washington, D.C., we have several historic cemeteries, but they have also been moved. And when you're talking about African Americans and cemeteries, the reality is that historically, because of America and its divide among race, that we had cemeteries that were for Black folks and cemeteries that were for white folks. And unfortunately, the cemeteries that were for white folks were better maintained as the cemeteries for Black folks were not. So when we come across, for me, a cemetery that's intact with a historical wealth of information about African Americans, I get excited. Here we go with that word again. I get excited.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, would you let us know what the cemetery means to you? What is the importance of the African American cemetery? I'm gonna have you unmute yourself, Mr. Moore, so we can hear you. While Mr. Moore is unmuting himself, Janice, let's talk about your interest and the significance to you.
So thank you, Sandra, and thank you so much, everyone who is here tonight. This collaborative, when I was given the opportunity by Raven Hill, president of Xi Omega, and Diane Johnson, the historian and history chair for Xi Omega, I was really excited because for me, as everybody has said, and you're going to hear it, sacred ground, and the fact that so many individuals of note and other individuals who are common folks are buried here, including Sarah Meriwether Nutter, who was one of our founders, and we have her great niece on this call as well. So I'm so excited that she is here. And Marjorie Hill, not Hall, but Marjorie Hill, who was one of our founders. She was our first Ivy Beyond the Wall, which is another reason that this is so significant. She was a founder in 1908 when we were founded. 1909 is when she passed, but she became Ivy Beyond the Wall, which is the designation we give to those who are deceased in our sorority. But the fact that these individuals are buried there, it is their final resting place. And the significance of the final resting place, as you mentioned, is so important. And as Tony said, we need to really take care of the final resting place of our ancestors, because these are the individuals who have made a way for us. And the significance of this particular cemetery is very, very powerful.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We can hear you now. We're waiting your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. This wasn't my phone, man. I had a problem getting unmuted. However, I'm so happy you all have my heart just melted. It's just a joy to hear you all tonight and to hear all these beautiful things that are being said and what have you. Woodlawn, I'll be as brief as possible. When we start talking about Woodlawn, since I have been involved with Woodlawn since way back when, when we're talking about our Black history that is so needed today among our little young and what have you that has no knowledge of what our history, what our ancestry have done for us. Woodlawn, we're turning Woodlawn into education, culture, center, and tourist attraction because it merits that. Woodlawn, as I've seen so much since I've been a part of Woodlawn, I tell you, I just feel like giving my all to Woodlawn. And it just makes me feel good to hear that you all have joined in with us now, everybody. And the more the merrier, get the word out there because this is what we need with Woodlawn. I'm so thankful that my vice president, I never forget the year that she and her sister came running in there and what have you, looking for her grandfather and so forth and so on. And I got their ear at that time, and which is Tony, my VP. And I got her ear and what have you, and was through Tony, was able to keep working with Tony, and finally she could see what we're talking about. And it's just been a joy to have met you all and what have you, and to have my sisters, my Black sisters aboard. It's just a joy. I'm planning to go. I won't be here next month, but my VP will have the keys and I will be on the phone. I'm planning to go to North Carolina because I'm among some of the oldest of my family. My aunt, my grand aunt was just had a day down in a little small town that I came from. So I'm going home on the 27th because we're planning a family reunion. So I'm going to take that ride down there. Otherwise, I would be at Woodlawn. But I know that you all are going to keep this thing rolling. And up in my friends up in New York, I want you to get the word out throughout the nation, everywhere, about our Black history and about Woodlawn. Woodlawn is on the National Historical Register of all 50 states of the United States of America because of who we have endured in there. We got Civil War vets. That is really something within its own self. We have 3 to 5 of the first Black senators, Bruce, Lancaster, Hyman of North Carolina, and it just goes on and on. There was churches that was started back many, many years ago. These people were slaves and schools, principals, superintendents, and what have you. We are standing on their shoulders to the day, and we need our young children to know who they are and whose they are. It'll make a difference in their life. So let's don't back up. Let's keep moving forward. I'm with you 100%, okay?
Mr. Moore, thank you so much. And we couldn't have said it better. And you are an embodiment of exactly why we're doing what we do, the history that you possess, the dedication and the care and the love you have for Woodlawn. That's what's going to keep it going. And sharing of that history, I mean, I would love to just bring you into my students and just have them sit at your feet and listen to all this. So thank you so very much. And we're going to come back to you, so don't go anywhere. Sorority, let's talk, let's have you tell us your connection to the cemetery and how you feel about it.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share the excitement that we're, the watchword for tonight, that we're all feeling in participating in this project. And when I first heard about it from my chapter president, I felt somewhat an obligation. I'm on the Heritage and Archives Committee of our chapter, but also because when I knew and learned that founder Mary Edna Coleman, Brown Coleman was buried there, I said, well, I have a double connection because her father was the first pastor of Lincoln Memorial Congregational Temple, which was a merger of two congregational churches, Park Temple and Lincoln Memorial. So I felt, well, I have to represent my church as well as my sorority in participating and learning about who's buried there and have an opportunity to interview those who remain, or those who are alive and have relatives interred there, because I'm also on the oral history committee of the collaborative. But the other thing about the churches, for example, Lincoln Temple was established in 1869 because it was a refuge for newly freed Africans who had been housed at the Wayland military barracks. And when those barracks fell apart, the Freedmen's Bureau deeded the property where my church now stands at 11th and R Streets Northwest to develop a mission. And I could go on and on about that, and I won't. But I just wanted to say that there's so many connections that I'm hearing and I'm feeling, and therefore this project is, and the cemetery itself is highly significant to me.
Thank you for all of that. And I'm going to ask Caleb Kamara from the mayor's office to give us his response and reflection and thoughts on the project and why it's significant.
Absolutely. And I may tough act to follow there, but I'll try. You know, the mayor even today was around the city for Read Across DC Day today and reading to the children just the stories of our past. And I thought on tonight's panel, watching that happen, how stories and books and even, yes, cemeteries are being, you know, pushed aside, covered up, and really disposed of, and how it is, you know, imperative that we preserve not just Woodlawn, but all the cemeteries, the historic African-American burial grounds around the nation, so that history does not repeat itself, especially in today's climate, to piggyback on what Mr. Moore said. So it's definitely something that's needed and will help the community of Woodlawn live up to that name. So thank you for being here. And yeah.
Well, thank you all. Let's talk a little bit about, we're very excited and we are ready to go. What is the vision of the Woodlawn Collaborative for the Woodlawn Cemetery? Let's ask Tony, why are we here? What are we doing?
Well, I was going to say, I was going to defer, if you didn't mind, to Marjorie Kennard, because I have to put this little tidbit in. It was my being involved with trying to have the cemetery open for the laying of the new stone for Sir Edna Brown Coleman that we started putting our heads together. And once we start putting our heads together, I think it stirred up Marjorie Kennard in a whole nother kind of way. So I'm going to defer to her to answer that question.
So
thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, I can talk about Woodlawn Cemetery forever and ever and ever, because when you go into those grounds, It is like sacred grounds, 22.5 acres of beauty. The thing about it is that you can't even tell it on the street. If you just walk by, you can't really tell it. You've got to walk into that space. And of course, after talking with Mr. Leander Moore, Tony, and others, and actually Reverend Bowen from the mayor's office and I were there together. And he said, wouldn't it be beautiful to have this space as a park? I mean, really beautiful as a park. And to have like a visitor's station out there, or a visitor's building where you can go in and see exhibits. Wouldn't it be beautiful to have children to come out there and see those grave markers and have projects where they would go and find information out about the exciting and beautiful people buried there? Because there are buried everyday ordinary people like you and me. Then there are stars in our history buried out there. So there's so much that could be done. So when you talk about having a vision, I have a vision. I just don't have the money. And Mr. Moore and Tony have the vision. And the board of directors, because I went to one of their meetings, they have the vision, but it's the money that is needed. But if you have not had an opportunity to go by 4611 Benning Road, Southeast, to see, and what you might want to do is just stand at the gate. But standing at the gate is not like walking in, because there are hills and dales all in there. And you know what? These, what do you call these people? These people who contractors and people who want to come and buy, purchase cemeteries and build on it. I can see
Developers.
that as some kind of, what did you say?
Developers.
Developers. Oh, the developers want that property. The developers have been in there and seen how beautiful that property is, and they can vision houses up on the hill and all kinds of wonderful things out there. But we can't let it happen. And so that's why we need the help of everyone to keep Woodlawn alive and keep Woodlawn well and do some things. Join us and help us to do things and to keep hope alive. That's all I want to, I don't want to take up too much time.
No, well, this is what we have the time for. We want to talk about what it is we see, how we can make sure that Woodlawn survives. And so let's talk about some of the projects that have gone on and some of the projects that are upcoming, so we can let people know what it is that we're doing and how we are making an effort to make sure that Woodlawn survives.
Well, okay.
Soror Kennard, you can continue, and then Soror Tony, talk about some of the projects.
Well, once we got ourselves together as a collaborative, we said, now what can we do? And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what we can do to be of assistance to Woodlawn. And we talk with them to find out if they think it's all right. You know, you don't walk in somebody's house and tell them what to do and tell them what you're going to do in their house. So we had to have their agreement that we can come and assist. And so what we wanted to do first is to bring community awareness. Some of you sitting right here looking at us don't even know where Woodlawn is. You've never been there. You see, so it's the community awareness piece as what we're trying to do. Then we're trying to help them to create a database with over 34,000 people buried there They have the records. Now, that's one thing we can say about Woodlawn. They have the records, but it's a matter of putting it all together, and we're helping them to do that. We're also trying to mobilize volunteers to go out there and have cleanup days. And that's where we want the community to really get behind us and say when you want to come out. We have certain days that we're open, and we want you to join in with us. We want churches, organizations, individuals, family. Maybe your family reunion can be a service project this year, and you can come out to Woodlawn and help clean up. You know, you don't have to eat all the time. You can come out and do a service project for Woodlawn. You see, I'm really passionate about this. And of course, we're doing an oral history project, and we're trying to reach out and find people in the community who have relatives buried there, so that we can interview you, so that you can be more, so you can just go there more. We don't think that enough relatives of family members actually go out there to see about their relatives. And so it's a many-pronged project that we're doing, but we're excited about what we want to do with Woodlawn and in agreement with Woodlawn Cemetery.
So, Tony, and then Janice, I want to ask you as an educator, what you see a way to connect young people with the cemetery and historical piece. So, Tony, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. I think what I see and what I always is an ongoing joke. The grass continues to grow, which means that after we cut it in March, we got to come back and cut it in April. Then we need to come back and cut it in May. And just wanting to see this commitment to just maintain this cemetery. You know, one thing Margie said, a lot of people don't know about its existence, but I'm going to bring it even closer to home to us being of the Greek letter organizations. I think it did my heart good to see the members of the Divine Nine to come out and to participate. I saw in those young people that they were learning history, that they were coming upon something new, and understanding that those that had went to the institutions in the area like Howard, those that went to the institution like the University of the District of Columbia, these Black HBCUs, that quite a few of the prominent people as to why these institutions are standing are buried right there at Woodlawn, buried right out Benning Road. And you know, we think of Benning Road as far northeast and just a neighborhood and, you know, not much of it historically, but it probably is one of the most historic neighborhoods in the city, considering who is buried out there. And in Woodlawn, I'm trying to keep it and make sure, as Marjorie said, not interested in having developers have it. If I were to say the dream is to have the feds come in, take some ownership, and they keep it up for perpetuity from that point forward. But until then, it's on us. It's on every single one of us to keep it and maintain it.
Thank you.
So I'll jump in to really piggyback on what Tony and what Marjorie said. For me, I'm a descendant by marriage of Alpha Kappa Alpha president of Xi Omega, Dorothy Boulding Farabee. So legacy is so very important. Dr. Farabee was also the 10th international president of Alpha Kappa Alpha. But you asked about how to get young people involved. Education, cultural and history, creating curriculum, like Tony just said, creating curriculum, but then also on site. I was also just excited to see the Divine Nine, the DC government, the community, and our young people out there. So having them involved, but also having them involved in the learning the business of cemeteries and how to run a cemetery. That's something that we don't even think about. This is an opportunity to have them learn about how they can make some money, because running a cemetery, working with the individuals in the community that want to volunteer, but, setting up a nonprofit, becoming the executive director and grants writer, all of those things, teaching those things to young people. And moving into grant writing, I think also what the vision Marjorie and Tony are talking about, I had been involved and am involved in the fundraising committee, working on funding and finding sustainable resources and sources. So some of the places that we were able to get in touch with, the DC Preservation League, the Office on Planning and Historic Preservation, the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund of the National Trust, DC Humanities and the DC Humanities Council, but there are many resources that we can look at and that we are going to be looking at in order to make Tony and Marjorie and Mr. Leander Moore's vision and the vision a reality, because it is so very important. And then bringing in our young people, because this is, for me, I think part of the disconnect that our young people, they don't know their history, and to learn about where people, just like their mom and dad, their ancestors are buried, as well as the notable individuals, is so very important to connect them to their ancestors, which means that they will then become what I consider the next generation of warriors. So I think that's so very important. So thanks for asking that question.
This has been a wonderful conversation. We are winding down for our segment. So I am just going to put it out that we need to do this again. And to have another part, have a part 2 that focuses on how we're connecting our students and our community. I am a public historian, as I've said, and I will make sure that my faculty looks at ways to bring our students out, especially we have a wonderful mortuary science program at the University of the District of Columbia Community College. And so this is a great way to connect. And as you were saying, Sora, Tony, so many students don't know, and many residents don't know of the historic things in their neighborhoods, because a lot of times they're not told, right? So it's not necessarily that they don't want to know. There has to be a way to bring that history forth. So thank you all for participating. I'm going to now turn it over to Sora Marjorie Cunard.
I'm wondering whether we have any questions to come from the chat. Can anybody let us know, Nicole or Ronil, do we have any questions?
So many of the questions that were in the chat really had to do with, how do we find out information? So we have provided the website so that they can get that information. But if anyone wants to put a question into the chat, feel free to. Lots of the comments talked about, the passion for the project. Many people are indicating that they would like to be part of the project, and they're happy to be here, part of this meaningful conversation. So we don't really have a lot of outstanding questions.
Very good. Very
Excuse me.
good.
Excuse me if I may.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
The young lady just posed quite a question, and I want to make this aware to you all that we welcome all memberships, even though you all are coming as your sorority and stuff, but we welcome all personal memberships to join in with us and to come forward at our meeting and what have you. And you bring those questions forward, what we want to do and plan and how we go about doing it, working together, And this is the way we do it, along with what the plan that you all have too. All of this goes hand in hand, and we can work it together just that way. We want memberships all around the nation, okay? We want memberships. Everybody is welcome at the table, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore.
So you do have a question in the chat. The question I have a question. Is Edna Brown Coleman's baby buried there as well? If not, where is the baby buried?
The baby was buried with her mother. So she's buried there too.
You know, I'm waiting
another
waiting
question.
for a dissertation to be done on
I know
Woodlawn.
that was the shortest answer, right? I'm waiting for more.
Yeah, we do need, that's working at Woodlawn, you can do a dissertation and you can have a master's and a PhD because the information is there. It's just a matter of how you would couch it. So anybody, any scholar who wants to work with us to do that, please do, please do.
Let me add this so that people have some information who've never been there, that we will be open Memorial Day, that Monday, that holiday from 10 to 2. And we will also be open on Juneteenth from 10 to 2. So those are days that you can come by, you can come in and see what we're talking about, to look at the headstones, to get a feel for, as Margie said, the vastness of the land. And in addition, I would like to say to anybody, say, how can they help? If you reach out to us on the woodlawndc.org website, you can offer to come and have a day for your organization to volunteer to help clean up.
Thank you.
Because as I said before, the grass grows every month. So we need all the help we can get in
And
keeping
it's so
it presentable.
expansive. Yes, it's so expansive. And I know for some of the groups that have been out there, sometimes we clean the front, but there's so much way back up the hill and way over on the other side. It's so expansive. We can have maybe 10 groups out there at the same time. One group goes out and you get, you say, oh my goodness, how are we going to do all of this? But it's been just wonderful. And you have a lot of fun out there too, working with one another. So I think in wrap up, I just want to say, you have another question?
Yeah, one more question. I think we've already answered the other about community groups. So yes, all groups are there and we are doing outreach. The final question is, thank you for being attentive to this, bringing attention to this remarkable landmark, but why do you feel this wonderful cemetery has been overlooked?
I would just say there's also a broader answer because we look at African-American cemeteries across the country, and many of them are in the same situation, lack of funding. A lot of time family members who come are older and unable to do the work that's necessary. But I think one of the things that we see happening is more and more attention by younger people being paid to these cemeteries and to the preservation of historical knowledge and historical ground, so to speak. So I think it's a lot going on for it, because you see from here, it's not lack of passion, but it's lack of funding, lack of ability. Most of us work. So if we're doing something, it's going to be on a weekend or a holiday. And as Tony says, the grass is still growing. Even with all of our excitement, we could do this 24/7, right?
Yes. So, and Woodlawn has been closed to burials since 1976. Is that right, Tony? Since
That's around the right time, yeah.
And you see, that's how cemeteries get their money, when they have people who are consistently buried there. And you go to some of the other functioning cemeteries now, they have several funerals coming there on a daily basis. And that's how they make money as a cemetery. Well, Woodlawn is full to capacity. So we have not had anybody buried there. Mr. Moore, did Mr. Moore want to say something?
Yes, the last burial was in 79. It was a dentist that had a plot, and we had to honor that. Matter of fact, I got pictures of that being dug up there. So the other thing is that I found out I found that when I become a member of Woodlawn, that it was lacking in, and I couldn't figure out why that people just didn't know about Woodlawn. And I hit the ground really moving because I got flyers. We started printing up flyers from the other old administration and everything, and floating those flyers. And people, every time I give them a flyer about Woodlawn, they say, "Oh, what is that? Oh, my granddaddy, my mama's back." I said, "Where have you been hiding so long? You know,
Yeah.
come on out there. We need you."
Yes.
It
Yes.
was a shame and a disgrace the way that Woodlawn was left as a dumping ground, and the way the overgrowth were in 2005. A disgrace on us as a people.
Now that we have got the collaborative and now that we have outreach plan and we will be connecting, I'm certainly going to make sure that curriculum that we're going to be working with and getting students connected. So we're on the move.
That's right. Well, now I have just a few minutes to wrap up. We want to thank certain people who have been very helpful. The Prince Home Masons of DC, the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, especially ANC 7A, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, John Wesley AME Zion Church, and of course, the Deltas and the AKAs, we just can't do without them. We're looking for Eastern Stars to come out to help us, any organization. We want you as individuals and groups, churches, to put us on your schedule so that you can come out and help us. We want to thank Mr. William Branch, chairman of the DC Emancipation Commemorative Commission, for allowing us to participate on this program during this Emancipation Month. We want to thank Ronell Joseph, who is providing technology for us. She's the chair of the Heritage and Archives Committee and historian of the Washington, D.C. Alumnae Chapter and a member of the Woodlawn Collaborative. We also want to thank Ms. Marguerite Moore, who's the wife of Mr. Moore, who got him on here tonight, and we are appreciative. Most of all, Nicole Jordan, president of Washington, D.C. Alumnae Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, who shepherds everything we do on behalf of Woodlawn Cemetery. We want to thank each and every one of you for being with us tonight, and we'd like to say good night to you at this time.